This conference will now be recorded.
There we go. So, Kevin, is this your first time on the webinar?
Second time, still at
Okay.
work, just getting info. Wanna pull the trigger here, but I don't know what size to get.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, maybe we can help you with that. So, it's cool. Awesome. How are you doing, man?
Just awesome, man. Just awesome.
Well, that's perfect. That's perfect. I wouldn't expect any other thing from you.
That's
Good.
right. I'm looking forward to 2022. Oh, I'm sorry, 2021.
No, I think you had it right the first time.
I agree.
Anyway, all right. Well, does anybody have any questions? I'll be glad to answer any.
I got a few.
All right, let's go for it. I'm
Okay.
ready.
You know, I bought the Nova 35,
Okay.
the 100. Okay,
All
on
right.
the exhaust. When you come out of the machine, do you need to stay 6 into the inline filter, then upsize it out, or upsize it all the way out of the machine? So I'm looking at either the AC Affinity S8 or the T10. It doesn't matter.
Mhm.
Bigger the
Well,
better, I guess.
yeah, you can get an S10. You don't need that fancy thermometer controlled thing. That'll add a little extra, but I mean, bigger's better, you know,
Okay, I guess my
honestly.
question is, when you come out of the machine, do you need to go 6 to the 10 or come out 10 to the filter, I mean the blower, and then 10 out?
Well, ultimately, you want the fan as close to the output as possible, as close to the outlet, wherever it's going
I
out.
can. That's not a problem.
Yeah, so that you have negative pressure in most of that plenum, so that it's not, you're not forcing the air through, and then it can escape through any leaks or cracks that may come. So if you maintain positive pressure through most of that plenum, that'll keep you, that's the best bet. Now, in that instance, if you're going to have a long run from the machine to your fan, then I think I probably would go with 8 at least. Whatever fan size you get. If you get an S8, I'd run 8 from the machine to the fan.
No, it's just going to, matter of fact, it's going to come out of the back of the machine, turn a 90 straight up and go straight up the wall and straight out, 90 out. So it's just going to be less than 8 feet to run, less than that.
I'd use the 6 foot then if it were me, if that was the case. I mean, if you're running 40 feet, I might think about some rigid or at least going up a size. But at that distance, I don't think that'd be a problem. I'd use what you got and just, reduce it there at the fan.
Okay.
Anybody else got any input on that? Yeah, I think you'd be safe because you're talking about very small runs,
Yes.
So let me I've got a picture of the way I've got mine set up. I've got an S6 and I kind of wish I'd have gone with the S8 probably. Let me see here if we can get on.
The only thing I was going to say was agree with what Brian said. If you're going to go long, not only the size, but then do rigid piping versus the flexible.
Yeah, but as short as his run is, I mean, I'd use what's there and just adapt it there at the fan. And mine is similar. I got a picture of my setup on here. Let's see. Let me go to the public facing side. But I've got a short run too. See, and I've just got mine mounted up there where I can access them easy and not have to kneel down and that kind of stuff.
Mine's gonna look just like yours.
Yeah. So I mean, I'd run 6 on that, man, on a 35. That ought to give you plenty of flow.
So 6 inch up to get the 8.
I don't know if I'd use 8.
Okay.
I mean, if you're going to use an S8, you could run 8. It's not that much. You don't have that much of a run. You don't need a lot.
Right.
But I mean, it'd be better to run 8 everywhere, of course.
The key is if you're going to run anything from the machine to the blower, to run the smaller from there, and then the bigger for the output. Because you don't want all that volume hitting basically a wall when it has to constrict and go out. So you'd rather have it go from small to large.
If you're at 6 inch on the laser and 6 inch on the output also, and you've only got a couple of feet there, I don't know that'd make that much difference. You still got to neck down to 6 inch in both of those places.
I'm just saying,
you're still going to have that same 6 inch restriction on each side.
No, I'm saying if he was doing a run, you'd want to make the bulk of the run the smaller pipe, and then
Okay,
have a bigger pipe for the output, because you don't want the bigger volume up from the machine to the blower, because
okay,
then you create back pressure as it's trying to suction it, or force that down into a smaller
okay.
duct. That's
I
all I was
got you.
saying.
Yeah,
With a shorter run, like Brian said, it doesn't really matter, I don't think.
Yeah,
okay.
I think, yeah. Um,
Because there's not been like $100 something dollars difference from the 8 to the 10.
yeah.
But the
Honestly, I
10
think the 8 would do fine for you.
okay,
I'd run the 8, get 2 8 to 6 reducers and just reduce it and use the stuff that's there. Like
okay,
if you're doing that run, like, you know,
yes.
it's short like that. But like Jason said, if it was longer, I might plan something a little different. But
It looks just like yours. It'll be just like yours.
yeah, I think
May
it'd be
I ask
fine.
a stupid question?
There are no stupid questions, but sure.
So I don't have my machine yet, and I'm trying to decide whether I'm going to vent out a window or if I go up out of the ceiling of my shop. If I go out of the ceiling, it's going to be like 20 feet. Is that
Mhm.
acceptable?
I'd use rigid ducting there, but yeah, that's acceptable.
Like 10?
Well, I mean, if it's only going to be 20 feet, you could probably run 6 rigid and be okay.
And do 6 from the machine and then 6 out the ceiling?
Are you going to use the stock fan?
What size is your
Uh,
machine?
It's a 80, or it's a 35
With the 35? Yeah. Yeah, I think that'd be acceptable, especially if you can use that stock fan. It moves, you know, almost 500 cubic feet per minute. But I'd probably run rigid ducting, you know, in that instance, if you're running it up.
Okay, thank you.
So, hey, Ron, how are you?
Doing good. Got
Good.
my laser the week before Christmas or week of Christmas, and got it set up. Been playing with it. I do have a couple questions though, so I guess maybe support-oriented questions.
Yeah.
The first one is probably the more simple one. I know like a common technique for focusing on like thicker materials is to focus in the center of the material.
Mhm.
And I've used that technique prior to getting my Thunder laser. But what I've noticed is if I focus on, say, a 3/4 inch board and do autofocus on that board, Lightburn won't let me go higher in the Z index than the set point of the autofocus.
Well, it's not Lightburn. That's the actual controller. That's also your Z-min, your minimum Z end stop. Your autofocus sensor is also your end stop. So once you break that beam, it won't allow the table to move anymore. So that's a hardware stop.
Interesting. Got it. I was wondering if it was related to Lightburn or what. So what I ended up doing was I forget what I think I ended up having it focus on something that was roughly the center point of my board first, and then I took that out and slid the board in place. Is that like how people tend to handle that, or
what are you trying to handle? Like you want to use the autofocus and then manually focus deeper into the material?
You're right. I want to do the auto. My intent was to do the autofocus on on a known thickness, and then like raise the bed half of that known thickness within half of the known thickness within Lightburn.
Yeah, with our autofocus system, also being the end stop for that Z-axis, if that beam is broken, you can't go any further. It's to prevent head crashes. So
okay. That makes sense.
Typically the way, the only reason that I like to align using autofocus is because I typically use the camera, and that keeps the distance from the camera to the material the same distance every time, so it stays in alignment. So I'll manually focus, and then if I need, or I'll autofocus, and then if I want to say it's half inch, I'll just focus, manually focus from there. Are you trying to use the automated Z stuff where you do steps per pass and get Lightburn to actually control the Z axis as well?
No, I haven't yet, but
Okay.
was interested in playing with that.
Gotcha. Yeah, it makes it a little touchy with the way our autofocus sensor is integrated with the in-stop. And
Okay.
it's kind of a built-in safety feature, so it's kind of like, one or the other.
Gotcha. No, I've experienced the heart attack that comes with an unintentional head crash on the laser at the makerspace before. So like, I appreciate any any preventative measures that are built into the machine.
Sure. We do our best. Of course, I've drugged my 4-inch head through my bed before, so sometimes no matter what devices are in place to help that, it doesn't help.
Yeah.
But you always have spare
Put your
parts
4-inch
available.
lens in, you better be careful.
Exactly.
The other question, I don't know quite how to explain this, and I took a photo of it to hopefully explain it. And I don't know if putting my phone up to the camera will demonstrate it, so I'll describe it first. But I had done like a raster pass, and then I did a fill plus line, and with the intent of cleaning up the edge of a raster job, and I had the settings for that the line pass to be like 10% power, like 1,000 speed. I wanted it to be just like as little of a pass as possible, so it wasn't like super dark outline or anything. And what I noticed was not on every straight line, but on almost all the straight lines, it seemed like the laser didn't fire in those areas, but it did fire on like the curved areas. And so I don't know if you can see that, but it like fired on the little curve underneath the K, but then it didn't like fire after it got out of the curve.
I'd have to look at your settings. It sounds like the minimum and maximum powers need to be adjusted a little bit. First of all, you can set your vectors to go 1,000 millimeters per second if you want to. You'll never achieve that. There's no way that head can go that fast around that stuff.
Okay.
So you're probably going, if you drop below 10 or if you're at 10 millimeters per second or slower on the head movement, it uses the minimum power. If you're going faster than 10 millimeters, max power.
Can you say that again?
Yeah, on vector,
Yep.
the minimum power kicks in at 10 millimeters per second or below.
Okay.
The maximum power is used going above 10 millimeters per second. So even if you say I want to vector that at 200 millimeters per second, if you're going around text, it may only be going 50. When it goes around those corners, it may have to slow down to 10. So it sounds to me like your minimum power is kicking in, but your max isn't. Is there any way you maybe didn't have your min max powers alternates backwards or something?
I don't think so. Like it forces, if you like change your minimum to like say 10, it forces the max to also be 10. Like if you're dropping it, I mean.
You could email me that Lightburn file.
Yeah.
And I can have a look at it and see how it's set up and see if I can determine anything.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to see on that photo, so if you want, shoot me that photo also.
Okay. Cool. It's on my different computer, so I'll send it after a while or something. But yeah, it was super bizarre to me. I'm like, I had a feeling it wasn't gonna be like a full 1,000, but millimeters per second around those different curves and stuff. I figured like let it go as fast as it can, I guess.
Right. And it will. It plans all that stuff on its own. But shoot that to support @ and that'll create a ticket. That way we can look at it because I'd like to see what's going on with that.
Okay. Cool. Will do.
Sure.
But otherwise, yeah, I've been having fun with it, and I haven't had any issues. Setup was super great.
Cool.
Super easy. Got it hooked up to my exhaust system that I installed in the attic, and I haven't had a chance to put dampener magnets on the like gooseneck thing on the roof yet, but it doesn't seem to have had any issues exhausting through that or whatever.
Cool.
One of the things that we were talking about the S6, S8, whatever the brand is, I forget, taking a little bit to get up to full speed. And so you can either have it on a separate control, a separate outlet and turn it on ahead of time, or you can just be okay with it taking a few seconds to clear out the smoke. I don't know if this is a good solution, but one of the things I realized is if I send the job to the laser with the lid open,
It'll kick the fan on.
It'll kick the fan on, but not obviously fire the job. And so I can like wait till the fan's full up to speed and then close it and press start on the controller. So,
hey, go for it. If that works for you. That's perfect.
Didn't we talk about this before?
I think so.
Where you just put in another color, like a smaller square or something inside the object, to where it does it without producing power. That way the fan has time to kick on for you, and then it jumps right into the actual engraving or cutting or whatever you're doing.
Yep, we had talked about that too. That's another way around it. Actually, I just thought of another question, Brian. What I remember you were saying about like minimum power. Like I noticed like if it was like under, it seemed like 4% was the threshold for anything or to get any kind of like noticeable line. If I had it like say 3% though, I'd get like little whispers here and there like of a vector line, but it wouldn't be.
Yeah, you got to get your power up enough to where that ionization voltage is high enough to maintain a uniform beam signature. Yep. So, at 3 or 4%, you might get enough excitation, to get ionization, but it won't be steady. So it can be sporadic. So you just need to bump your power up a little bit until you can maintain a steady beam signature.
Is that consistent across like Thunder machines, for example, or
that is an effect of DC excited tubes in general.
Okay.
That's just the nature of the beast. That's just the physics that's involved in a DC excited glass tube.
Okay. Will that value around like say 4%, will that be consistent across the life of the tube, or will it like need to go higher at some point?
I don't know that the striking voltage would have to get higher, but you may notice a degradation in power, as it ages, which means that you may have to start increasing power, as it starts reaching the end of its life. But I don't know that answer for sure if the striking voltage is affected by that or not.
Okay. Cool. I think that's all the questions I have for now. So I'll email you that file though.
Okay, cool. Does anybody else have anything?
Yeah, how do I decide between a 35 and a 51?
Well,
do you want it to take up the size of a Prius in your shop?
Money and half your garage.
Well, and if you ever think about working with 4x8 full sheets of stuff without having to rip it down, that 51 will pass a 4x8 sheet of material through the bypass.
That's what I'm wondering. Like, I'm trying to imagine what the heck I would ever make that big.
Yeah.
Any ideas on what people make that size?
But if you get a smaller one, you won't have to worry about making anything that big because it ain't going to happen.
People always tend to say get the biggest machine and most powerful tube you can afford. And that's what I did 5 years ago, or nearly 5 years ago. And I've never wished I had a smaller, less powerful machine.
Yeah.
I say go for it.
That's how I feel about my Ford diesel truck.
So that's a tough call. I've got a 35. It's a perfect size for me. But I started with ULS and it had a pretty small workspace, 18 by 22 or something like that. And then I went to K40s and some other clones, smaller work areas. But that 35 has been great. I think a 51 would be a little too big for what I do. But for a lot of people, that's a game changer because you can, work with a full sheet of material if you need to. Give you that extra little boost.
When I posted a photo of my 35 on Facebook, like my friends already thought I was like crazy to like get a machine that big. Like I could imagine if I posted a 51 inch. Like,
I'm waiting for somebody other than I can't advocate it, of course, because I think the weight range on the Nova 63 is lower. I think it's about 66 pounds, but I'd love to see somebody lay on a Nova 63 in the bed, how everybody's getting on their crates. Actually get inside one of those. So
I want to see Fred on his beast.
So
any examples of what people make with a full sheet of plywood?
Well, there's some people that make panels, like for like partitions, like decorative panels, changing, that kind of thing, things to go on doors, shower, shower doors, that kind of thing. But now, you know, as far as using a full sheet, one thing to that is if you're making a lot of stuff, if you're cutting out MDF die sub blanks, for instance, out of MDF, and it's all piece count, you need to pump out as many as you can an hour. You know, it's a lot better. You don't have to rip the material down to make it fit in the machine. So it's really, it can help save in that part of the workflow, so that you don't have to process your material just to get it into the machine. So that can save a lot of time. So.
All right.
Well, just a question on, we've been, 3580 came just after Christmas. We've been playing with some scrap plywood, finished both sides, maple. And most of the stuff we cuts 99.9% of the time, but we have those, those glue pockets that kind of hang up every once in a while. So do most people just go ahead and crank the power up and waste power basically, so everything cuts, or do you just mess around with having to mess with some pockets that don't cut?
Yeah, I think most people just push on through it. Just either slow down a little bit or, you know, add a little more power and just push on through it. That's pretty much the only way that I've seen, you know, to get reliable results, is just put the powder to it a little bit.
Just with that extra power. Okay. The other thought is when you're doing engraving and cutting on the same piece, for the best engraving, you want to put the larger nozzle on your 2-inch, correct? For engraving. But then for cutting.
Not necessarily. One reason having the dual stage air assist is so that you can adjust the airflow, so that you don't have that full jet, you know, so that you can have a lower airflow without having to put that diffuser nozzle on there. That nozzle just diffuses the air, and it is good on acrylics. It works really well on acrylics. But typically I leave my standard nozzle on there, and I just adjust my airflow, you know, with the dual stage. So, I mean, that's what that was originally used for, that nozzle, and it's still a good nozzle to use, but they also included that in the toolkits because at the time, when they put those out, the machines were single air assist. So they made it easier just by switching a nozzle to go from cut to engrave, I think was part of the reason behind that nozzle to begin with.
That makes some sense. The other issue, Joanne will be cutting some fabric eventually. So your the high definition or the high resolution nozzle says 1 millimeter for focusing, or for 1 millimeter material. So is that something we should be purchasing for cutting material, or will the 2-inch nozzle?
No, that 2-inch will cut just fine. That 2-inch will be what you want. That high resolution nozzle is more for engraving, not for cutting. So I would just stick with the stock lens for that one.
Okay, yeah, we haven't done that yet, so okay. And having good luck cutting half-inch ply with the 3580 and 2 pass. Well, sometimes it was 2 passes, depending on how we were playing with the power. But
right. Are you using the stock air, or do you have an external air source?
No, I did hook up the external air.
Okay.
And running the 40 psi to the outside of the dryer.
Gotcha. Okay. Cool.
You were talking about the glue pockets a moment ago. Everyone else might know this, but I only learned about it over the holiday season. The new feature Lightburn has, that start from here feature that you can access through the I guess the preview window. I was cutting out 1 million of those snowflakes over Christmas, and I'll tell you what, that thing was such a time saver. Rather than having to cut out the whole snowflake again, I could just zero in on wherever that glue pocket was and just hit that part a few times until it cuts out. So I don't know if anyone didn't know that, but now you do. It's valuable.
I've seen it, but I haven't played with it yet. So
really good.
What feature was that again?
When you go into Lightburn and you open up the preview window, there's a little slider bar on the bottom of that preview window that kind of tracks the process as you know, the thing's being cut out or engraved. And then you just line it up. Basically, you can move the slider bar to exactly where you want the cut to start. So say, for example, you know, I was cutting out these very ornate snowflakes that I'd get an air pocket or a glue pocket right in the middle. I can put that pointer kind of right where that glue pocket is, and there's a button that says start from here. So you don't waste your time kind of starting from the very beginning. I hope that makes sense.
I think Brian's going to demonstrate here.
And then you just double cut over that area again?
Yeah, and I just let it cut it over, and then I stop it. And because that small cut is now saved in the machine, I just press start again. So you could do that, 3-4 times, however many times you need. But it only takes 10, 12 seconds as opposed to, like I said, cutting out the whole thing again.
So yeah, I think you can take it to wherever you need it. For instance, have it right about here, and you can hit start here, and it'll start from this point and finish the rest out. Yeah. Or from, okay, that's an engrave on that side too, but still, it'll do the same thing. You just pick where you want it to go in the progression, and then hit start from there. And
I noticed that feature the other day when I was playing, and a few years ago I was doing a giant raster job at the makerspace, and someone accidentally flipped the wrong breaker in the other room. They were and they shut the laser off, and I was just like so pissed because I had no good way of like telling the laser where to start on my raster job, and something like that would have come in so much handy.
Yeah, well, these Ruida controllers can recover from a power failure and pick up where they left off.
Well, this one could not.
So, one thing that we've been talking about, and if any of you are still looking at machines, we had been sending out different power cords for the machines depending on the wattage. Typically, the 130 watt machines had a 20 amp plug on them that had the sideways terminal, so that they would not fit a standard 15 amp. And then everything below that was coming with a 15 amp plug. And engineering has sent me some notes. They would like to go to a 20 amp on all, since we recommend a 20 amp dedicated outlet on all, so that we standardize it and everybody's on the same page. So that may be coming. I just want to let you know, and I'll update and put out documentation for all you who are still looking, if that becomes a thing. So I just wanted to mention that while I was thinking about it.
Yeah, you
What's
tried to
that?
drive me a little bit crazy with the cord you sent me with the chiller, that there was no place to plug it in on the machine. It's just kind of like, I know it's here somewhere.
Yeah,
So
yours happens to be one of the ones that isn't tethered to the machine. And did you see my note? I think I sent you the wrong cord. I sent you a plain extension cord. It did not have the IEC. It didn't have the correct thing on one side.
Okay, I thought I screwed up and ordered that cord. You sent me that cord.
I sent you
Okay.
that cord, and I sent you the wrong thing, and you just reminded me about it. So I'm going to go in here and fix it and send you the right one.
You're just trying to confuse me, and it doesn't take much.
Sorry about that. Sometimes I throw a wrench in my own works. So. Well, if anybody else has any questions or comments or anything, yeah, go ahead.
When Jason and Ron was talking about your exhaust, do you have to plug it into the machine, or can you put it in another receptacle where you turn it on and off yourself?
You can cut it on and off yourself. You can still have it controlled by the machine on those axial fans. The machine will easily handle that load. It only takes about a quarter of the current to run one of those as it does one of those centrifugal fans anyway. So you can have the machine control it, but you're welcome to just plug it in and turn it on at your leisure as well.
Okay.
Either way.
Well, it really wouldn't hurt nothing, because like I said, I'm new to this. So it really wouldn't hurt nothing to turn it on before you send it to the machine. It wouldn't hurt nothing, would it?
Nope.
Okay. Okay.
The only thing to keep in mind, is if like you're in a climate controlled, really cold place, like in the winter, or the really warm place in the summer, like your HVAC is going to be going out. So it's best to have it on as little as possible. So I wouldn't like turn it on and leave it on the entire time you're like in a session, but like only have it on when the machine's firing.
Yeah, mine is heated and cooled shop. So
yeah.
Hey guys, I want to introduce myself. Can you guys hear me?
I hear you.
Yep.
Okay, hey guys. I know I've emailed Brian a few times. I think Robert, I've talked to you on Facebook, but I'm Daniel Waters. I'm in Texas. Ordered my 35-100 right before Christmas. I think I should be getting it in March, early April. So I've been studying up on all the Facebook videos and the posts and the cheat sheets and all that stuff. So just want to say hi. And I think Brian ordered one of the chiller alarm cable extensions. I think the tubing extension kit's still out of stock. I don't know if you knew if they can stock or not. I can't hear you, Brian. I don't think.
You there, Daniel? Welcome to the group.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you. I can hear you. I can't hear Brian. Looks like Brian's talking on mute, maybe.
Yeah, it doesn't look like he's on mute. But
Am I on mute now? Can you hear
there
me?
you go. No, you're good.
Yeah, I
Okay.
hear you now, Brian.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of feedback from somebody. If you guys wouldn't mind muting when you're not talking, I'm hearing stuff in the background there. So as far as those chiller extension kits go, yeah, I got to order some more stuff and get some of those in. I can make the kits up myself, but I like to get them from China because they solder the connections for those 2-meter ones.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
ultimately, if you want to, that's just 2 wires in there and it's low voltage. You could literally cut that thing in half and get some terminals, some butt connectors or whatever, and lengthen that alarm cable. It's not polarized or anything. It's just a switch, just a signal. And then you just get standard 8mm by 12mm silicone tubing, whatever length you want. There is you don't want to run it 20 feet. That pump won't handle it. It can't handle that kind of head pressure. It doesn't have that kind of lift. But within reason, a couple meters. And you can do that yourself, but I will get some more kits. It may be another week or two before I get them, out there on the site, but I'll typically put out a thing saying, hey, I got some more chiller kits on the site and whatnot, link it on the pages. So.
Okay. Yeah. Very good. It's not a problem. I just want to move my chiller on the right side of the machine. So like I said, I've still got another month and a half, so it's no big deal. But
Gotcha. Yeah, I should have those out hopefully next week. I've got the stuff on the way, and I just found a replacement regulator, so I'm going to put some more of those external air connectivity kits back out too. I'm going to get 10 more of those ready to go in the next week or so.
Cool. Okay. Appreciate you guys. Everything you do. Your videos are good. Robert, you have good videos and kind of studying up, getting ready. Just want to say hi to the group and get on the first call. So
awesome. Good to have you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Hey, sorry I didn't introduce myself earlier. I'm Susie. I'm outside of Denver. Do you know if anybody else in this area has a Thunder?
Ooh, it's possible. I don't keep up on the sales side now, so I don't get to see all the addresses like I used to. But there may be someone out there. I tell you what, on the global Facebook group may be a good place to ask that. There may be.
Yeah, I reached out there with no luck. No.
Yeah, you may be all by yourself out there. You may have to be the first.
Do you know when the external air regulator is going to be back in?
I've got the stuff on order. I did find a single dryer regulator that I'm going to use instead, so I can go ahead and get that on the works. And I should have that stuff here Sunday. So I'm going to build them next week and get them on the site.
Okay. And will it just be added in the accessory section?
It will. They'll be back in stock. Actually, it's on the. If you go to parts.thunderlaserusa.com, I'll put it in the chat. I'll put a link to the parts site.
Okay.
And they're showing out of stock right now, but we'll put those back in.
Yeah, I want to get one of those heading my way.
And like I say, it may be the middle of next week before I get them up there, but I do try to publish on the Facebook groups and say that I've added, a couple of these kits or that kit or whatever. So I'll put that link in the chat for you. So.
Did you identify the connectors for the chiller alarm, the actual connectors themselves, so I don't hodgepodge the
Yeah, I need to do that. I ended up getting the information for the main power connections, those quick locks this week, but I did not get those. I'll find that out for you. And I've got your ticket looking at it right now. I'll make myself a note in there to do that as well as get you the right cord. So I'll get both of those answers to you.
Thanks.
There we go. Okay, I updated the ticket, so I'll know.
Brian,
Yes.
did I hear Daniel say something about a cheat sheet to be prepping for getting ready for his machine? Because I'm in the NKPs and mine's going to be in March.
Absolutely. I'll put it in the chat as well, if that's okay.
That'd be good. Thanks.
There's the cheat sheet. Uh-huh.
March is going to be a busy month, isn't it?
Yeah, man, every month's been a busy month. It keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Well, that's when mine's supposed to be here too, but all these other two guys saying March, they're busy in March.
Right, exactly. Yeah, it's been crazy. Again, I don't try to keep my finger on the pulse of what's going on in the sales side anymore. I got my own stuff to worry about, but I can definitely tell. But honestly, we must be doing something pretty good because, you know, the calls, they're not burying me. It seems like everybody is getting along pretty well. And so that's the best that can be expected. Looks like we've hopefully got our ducks in a row so that we can help you guys be as prepared as possible. So that helps keep our service burden down. So, but well,
Kevin, Brian, when Kevin was talking about deciding what machine, I was able to go to Michael Garrett and see a 51. That's what decided I made my decision from. I was actually able to see the machine and plus talk with somebody that had one.
Right.
Just for info.
Yeah. And you know, as far as the design and build and all that stuff, all the Nova series are pretty much identical. You know, so you're literally just looking at speed, power, and money. You know, or physical size, power, and money.
Gotcha.
So
I didn't hear all that. It broke up a little on my end.
Gotcha.
Danny was saying.
Well, I don't know if I have anything else. It's a little early. I thought it said 3:55 there for a minute, but it's 3:35. I just need glasses. I don't know if anybody else has any other questions. The only thing I really wanted to cover was kind of just poke everybody's brain about that possible power cord thing, and I'll update that when I know for sure.
Still a fiber laser coming out?
Yeah, there is. They're still putting some finishing touches on it. You know, they don't like to put anything else out, you know, until they're sure or, you know, that everything's right with it. So they're not in any, you know, they're in a hurry. They want to be able to provide it, but they're not in such a hurry that they're going to release it prematurely. So they're probably just running some more tests and stuff. So, but they pushed it back another quarter, I think. But
Gotcha.
I'm anxious to hear something. Because I'm really interested in it. I don't know a whole lot on it myself, other than some precursory information, so I can't wait to dig into it.
I saw when I was looking at the 51, the difference between the 100 and 130 watt didn't seem too terribly different for what you're gaining for the 30 watt, like cutting through material. Am I seeing that right? Like, it doesn't seem like you're gaining that much.
Again, it depends on what you're doing. If you're doing piecework and cutting out, you know, MDF blanks of snowballs all day long out of MDF, and that's your business, and you have to have 1,000 of them a day. If your ROI depends on that, then yeah, every little second will help. You know, that'll equate to a higher ROI. You know, if it's something that you just tinker with on the weekends, like that's me. I've got an 80 watt. I'm not in any hurry. I can cut anything I want to cut. I can cut 4-inch foam. I can cut a 2x4.5. You know, it just takes me a couple seconds longer than it maybe would somebody with 100 or 130 watt. So a lot of that's really going to depend, you know, on how purpose driven that machine is, you know, what kind of things you want to do. If all it's going to be is a cutter, you know, of thicker stuff, MDF and acrylic and things like that, then yeah, I'd go as high power as I could. If it was going to be a cutter of nothing but fabric and I would never cut anything but fabric on it, I don't think you'd gain a whole lot between 100 and 130 because you can burn through that stuff probably with an 80 watt, no problem. Right. So, you know, there are definitely some considerations, but
I really don't know what I want to make. I'm kind of looking at it as an income generator to kind of transfer myself into retirement. So yeah, hopefully it turns into a substantial enough income where I can, you know.
Now, I will tell you that having a bigger machine opens you up to bigger jobs that even if there's other people that do similar things in your area, you'll have an advantage over. You know, if somebody does bring them a shower door, you know, and they've got an Epilogue and you've got a Nova 63 and you can set that sucker in there and engrave their family crest on the glass, you know, you just made $200 and that other
Right.
guy lost out, you know. And I hear those kind of stories. And yeah, about 80% of the people do say, I'm glad I went big, or I wish I had gotten one size more. But you know, that's the case with anything.
So you
So
can engrave glass with these?
yes.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, it
Yeah,
doesn't actually
Jason,
ablate the glass. It creates microfractures, but when you etch it, it does give it that frosted look. So yeah,
Frosted,
absolutely.
yeah. Okay, gotcha.
hey, Jason, I've yet to read anything bad about a Rotoboss, but why don't you produce a Rotoboss that has a chuck on it? I guess the chucks are still out of chuck.
Sorry
Stop.
about that. No, I was gonna say I've been tinkering with some ideas of things to do with it, but finding time right now is pretty hard. Thunder keeps me pretty busy, so trying to find time to come up with new stuff is a little difficult right now. But
And the chuck's probably a pretty niche in comparison
yeah,
to the rest.
I mean, honestly, myself included. I mean, a lot of people I've talked to, once they get one of these rotaries, they don't typically ever pick up a chuck again because there's really no need to, unless you're doing, I don't know, maybe a block of wood that is kind of out of shape and you still need to turn it or something like that. Because I mean, there's not much that I've heard that it can't do, from dog bowls all the way down to pins. But
Yeah, the wooden bowls that I do with the tenon on the bottom would be tough, I believe, to get into the Rotoboss. But
what machine do you have?
the
What lathe?
3580.
I remember you talking to me about the bowls, but I don't think I ever seen one. Because you might be able to figure out some way to, or an attachment of some sort to accommodate that for you. But I would need more information and some pictures and details to try to do something like that if possible, even. Or if you
Yeah.
could even send me one and I can play around with it and see if I can come up with some idea on how to make it work.
Might be able to do that then. Okay, I've got your address on your website. So okay, I might shoot you a rough turned bowl. I won't send you a finished one, but I send you a rough turned one.
Okay. Yeah, I mean it's close to finished as you can get it without actually having to lacquer it or whatever you do to it. I mean, you don't want it to be rough and lumpy because I mean that's not going to be practical for trying to engineer something to work with a finished product.
Sure. Anyway, yeah, I do have the chuck rotary on order from Thunder, and I guess they're in back order. So anyway, just curious to bug you. Thank you.
What is the while we're on the Rotoboss, what's the difference between the Rotoboss and the Rotoboss Junior, the different ones?
Well, there's three different ones: the Rotoboss, the Junior, and the Low Roller. The Low Roller and the Junior are essentially the same rotary. The only difference between the two is the Low Roller, as you can see there on the far right, is it's got smaller wheels and they're spaced the same distance apart, but they're smaller to allow you to get as much surface area and room out of the bed as possible to do all the way up to, and I think you could do, up to 60 ounce like growlers or something like that with them.
Okay.
But ideally it was designed to handle up to 30 ounce tumblers with that on a Nova 24 or similar small machine. The
Gotcha.
Junior, on the other hand, has the full size wheels. It's a little bit taller, and it's bigger. It's longer. The Low Roller comes as a 15.5 or so inch long, and then the Junior comes in 21 inches long. So it's a bigger machine. The bigger wheels, a little bit more versatile. And then you have the Rotoboss, which is the what came out first was the Rotoboss, and everything else kind of stemmed off of it. But if you look on the right hand side, where underneath the wheels you have the motor, so you need a larger machine for this because the motor sets it up higher to be able to maintain the ability to raise and lower both ends, motor and the slave wheels. So that there is really the only difference between the two, is you get two sides that adjust versus one side that adjusts with the junior and the low roller.
Right. So the original Rotoboss would be the Cadillac. If you had a 35 or 51, that's what you'd go with.
Yes, and that's good for doing like your growlers, doing the fluted wine glasses and stuff where the opening is a lot narrower than the body.
Yeah.
So you can lift
wine glasses too. It helps.
That too.
Yeah.
Well, the idea is because the older rotaries, the flat ones, like for all the other Chinese machines and everything are out there that everybody gets, you could only lift one side. And the idea was to allow you to be able to clamp it from one side no matter what the object is, because you used to have to spin the cup around or whatever so you could lift the shorter end. Well, then you lose the ability to clamp it or hold it down on the motor side. So that's why I came out with this, where the motor side lifts as well, so that way you can adjust pretty much for any kind of object that you have.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and typically the way we used to sell those, the full-blown Rotoboss has just now become available through Thunder. Before that, we had the Roto Junior that was for the Nova 35 and up, and then the low roller for the Nova 24. And now that we've introduced this, there's sometimes some confusion, but I think the way sales does it is if you have a Nova 35 or a 51 or a 63 and you say you want a rotary, they're going to automatically pick or tell you the Roto Junior. So if you want the full Rotoboss, just let them know, and that's a little bit of an upgrade, but they can do that. But typically, if you call in, they're under the impression that the Roto Junior is going to be the default one for the 35 to the 63. And then, of course, the low roller is the only one that the Nova 24 will accept and still be able to have enough room to do whatever you need to do. So,
what would you guys suggest as far as extra lenses, or like the high res lens, or the Thunder Cam? What would be the best wish list, or all of them essential? Or
I would say it depends on what you're going to do. I mean, what are your plans? I mean, if you're not going to be doing a lot of detailed high resolution photos, I mean, a high res lens is probably not going to do anything for you.
Okay, so that's more for photos.
I would, photos and really high detail work.
Yeah.
I would recommend just the 4-inch lens. I mean, a high resolution is not a bad lens. It's good to have in case you need it, but a 2-inch and a 4-inch are good because a 2-inch will allow you to do your kind of, I wouldn't say low res, but nice quality photos and stuff like that. But then you have a 4-inch, you can do some cutting of thicker materials, and there's a lot more you can kind of do to kind of trick the system to get different effects out of it with a 4-inch and or a 2-inch.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And that HR lens is awesome. We started selling it instead of the original Thunder HR head just because it performed so much better. But like he said, if you came into this saying, I'm buying this laser because I need to do 1200 DPI images on anodized aluminum or on acrylic or on glass or painted tile or whatever, then I would say immediately get the HR head. If you're going to be doing a variety of things and you're not real sure, I would start with the 2-inch, and then as you develop your skills on actually processing the photos and getting the output that you want, you'll find eventually, if you keep pushing the envelope, that you need higher resolutions, and that's when you can say, okay, maybe I should invest in that head.
I'm kind of a photo geek, so.
Okay, well then throw it in there because you'll work your way up to it.
That's something sounds pretty cool, actually.
It's better to have it and not need it kind of thing, because if something comes up, I mean, you could make a lot of money. When I do them few and far between, but they bring in a lot of money, depending on the size of them. So if it's something you can nail down good, I mean, you can make a good small fortune off of them easily.
What's a
Don't
good
mind me asking, what do you guys tend to charge for photo jobs like that?
The last photo job I did was a couple. They were outdoors in some woodsy kind of scene, and it was about 18 by 16 inches was the engraved area, and I think I charged $450, and it took maybe 3.5 hours to do. So,
Okay.
I mean, like I said, the the return on that investment is good. And then, like I said, if you're doing big stuff like that, a 2-inch lens is pretty sufficient. That's what I used. It's when you start getting into the smaller objects with detail is where the high res is really going to kick in and do good for you. Because on the bigger stuff, like that same 16 by 18, if I was to use a high res, I would probably be looking at 6 to 8 hours to do that same job, because you have to move in slower steps for that beam, because the beam is smaller. So you got to look at it that way too. Is at what point is it best to use a high res versus a 2-inch? Typically for me, anything over 10 inches square, I'll use a 2-inch, because it's faster. The detail doesn't need to be as pronounced. Anything less than that, I would consider a high res.
What's some cool media to print on? Like, what do you get some really nice effects off of?
For high resolution, you'd have to use a painted tile or acrylic or anodized aluminum. The substrate would need to be able to support that resolution. If you tried to do a 1200 DPI image on a piece of pine, you'll just blow it on a piece.
It isn't gonna cut it,
So
right?
the substrate has a lot to do with it.
But like on wood, like a poplar's a really tight grain.
Basswood is good.
Alder wood is really good. Some cedar, like a Spanish red cedar or something like that, with a real tight grain, is pretty versatile and good. Basically anything with a tight grain structure. You don't want to use oak. You don't want to use pine, fir. Maple is pretty good. It's actually probably, I would consider it like a mid to high grade for doing stuff like that. But in all reality, plywood. Get some nice birch or get some nice maple plywood, and as long as you're not going too deep into it, I mean, you can make some amazing work out of it. Because it's going to be a consistent, because obviously it's in sheets, so it's going to be a consistent texture.
So you don't break that first ply.
Yeah. And a lot of times when you're doing photos, you don't want to go much beyond just scorching the surface.
Right.
Because if you go much more than that, then you start to distort the smoke and stuff that comes off of it. It ruins the image and the quality of the photo or the image that you're doing. But yeah, I would stay away from pine, oak, any of that stuff, like a heart attack. Yeah. And then, like you said, painted tiles are really good, and slate's really good.
Yeah.
Brick, like a smooth finish brick. That's like a slate right there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of that. Again, with that stuff, you want a nice tight material. You wouldn't want to do granite or marble or anything like that and try to do anything of great detail. You could do a like lettering and things like that, a marble and granite and stuff, because people do it for headstones and stuff all the time. But it's not something you'd want to. It's almost like pine. It kind of blisters and pops as you engrave it, almost like glass as well. So the finer the detail, the more distortion you're going to get, because it's removing more material than you intended when it kind of bursts on the surface when the laser hits it.
Gotcha. Can you get a depth of field on like glass, as far as like a deeper cut and a shallower cut that makes it kind of look?
You can't ablate glass. It doesn't actually ablate the glass. It just creates little explosions because it converts the water molecules to steam. And if you do get where you're actually getting material coming off like it's spalling or chipping, that means that you're actually fracturing it enough to it's not supposed to.
Gotcha.
So you'd have
You
to
can
dither.
do you can what's it called in Lightburn where it's almost like the V groove. What is that? The
Ramp.
The
ramp.
Yeah.
If you use ramp effect on glass, you can kind of get that because as it tapers into the higher power, it kind of frosts it, and then
It'll feather it. Yeah.
it feathers it. It doesn't actually do physically. It doesn't actually do anything, but the power adjustment or the power level as it goes to the center and away from the center.
Gotcha.
And you can kind of do that, especially if you're doing it on the back of the glass. If you're doing on the back of the glass, that variation will show through kind of as a two-dimensional, maybe three-dimensional look, slightly.
Imagine like a etching the back of a mirror like that.
Yeah, you can do back of mirrors really well too.
Like doing that ramp effect would be cool to, like, especially if you maybe paint it over then after lasering it, where like black paint or something. So it'd be like solid black in the middle of the etch, and then maybe.
Well, it's not.
How long is shipping?
It's not that pronounced, and I don't know if what you're saying would work. Like for acrylic, if you did acrylic, yeah, that would work really well.
Gotcha.
To do that and then backfill it with black, you would actually see the V come up in the acrylic.
Sure.
Whereas the glass, it's more of, it goes from a frost to what I guess Brian calls the ablation, where it actually starts to fracture the surface. Yeah. So you'll get that kind of transition color, but you're not really going to get deep into it.
Right.
So it's
More
something you'd have to play around with.
A little bit of an illusion that you can get.
Yeah. It's not a true V cut or anything, but you kind of get that illusion as you say in it when you do it.
Gotcha. Thanks. Appreciate it.
What program are you using to clean up your photographs before you engrave them?
Talking to me?
Yeah, Jason.
Typically I do everything in Corel. I have Photograv or Photograve, but it usually doing it that way you still have to make adjustments, so it's just easier once you learn how to do it in Corel to kind of do it yourself, and you can record your own macros. So when you're doing a project, and let's say you're doing a 3-inch square and you're trying to put a design on it, right? You go and you go to your macro settings on the top of Corel, pull it down, and hit record. And then you go through, do your test, see how that works, make your adjustments, do a test, make your adjustments, do a test. And then once you finally finish it, then you stop your recording, and then you name that macro maple whatever, or whatever you're doing. And then that way you can go back to that macro, use that macro on that same type of wood with a different image, and you should get right around the same results out of it. So and that's basically all Photograv and all that stuff does, is it's macro settings.
Great, thanks.
All right. Well, it looks like it's pretty close to time. We did pull out an hour. That's awesome. I was worried there for a minute.
What's that expression, like, a job will take as much time as allowed for it? You set it for an hour, we'll fill the time. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So cool.
Thank God for the new guy and his questions.
Exactly. You saved the day, man. You kept me from having to keep thinking of things. That's great.
Well, we all knew it one time, right, Brian?
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
It all start somewhere.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I'm excited. I started out with a small diode laser about 3 months ago, and it didn't take me about a week to kind of see the limitations on that. So I got to look these.
Hey, Brian, I do have a question before we leave.
Yeah, man.
I was going to ask Robert. He got off. I also have a Axiom CNC machine in my shop. You think it's a good idea to cover the laser up when I'm using the CNC machine?
Couldn't hurt.
I used to have mine in a wood shop, and I'd use just a sheet, just throw a sheet over it so the dust can't settle on it.
Okay.
The nice part about that is you get to do the dramatic reveal every time you go to use the laser. Yeah.
No, I've actually done that before. I hide a customer's piece inside the cabinet and I pull back the sheet like some dramatic reveal, just messing around. But yeah, I'll just cover it with a sheet or something, a light old bed sheet or something.
Okay, thanks.
But the bigger thing too is if you're around that dust, don't forget your chiller. Don't forget to either cover it or check it frequently, because that'll pick up every little dust particle you have. Because I had that problem one time, and it had a over temp and shut off, and I couldn't figure out why, and I started tearing the the chiller apart, and the filter was clogged. But that was a lesson I made early on, a lesson I learned early on. But yeah, don't forget about that. It's easy to forget about the chiller.
Well, I've got a 3 horsepower jet for my dust collection, and I also got one of those Axiom sells them. And if anybody's interested in them, they're great. It's an air purifier.
Yeah.
It will suck, man. That thing will suck anything up. I got it in the corner when I'm running the CNC machine. Just everything go. What doesn't get pulled up in my jet, everything goes to that little vacuum purifier.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Steve, what was the purifier? What was the name of it?
It's on Axiom. Hang on, it's a Stratus. If you go to Axiom, they have them. They're called Stratus, and you get them. There's two different types. One with the charcoal filter, one without it. I bought the one with the charcoal filter, and I think they're like $600 or something like that. But I can move it. You can move it from room to room to room, wherever you want to move it. It's got rollers. They're really good.
My machine is right beside my CNC machine. That's the issue. And I will find the sheet.
Okay, so this is that Stratus. That's not an active component. It's just a filter system. And use your Okay.
Yeah, I have one of them big Delta boxes. It's probably about 2 foot by 20 inches. It hangs from the ceiling and it circulates the air through the shop.
Yeah, I was gonna buy one of those. It was a win.
But man, they clog up fast.
Yeah, I canceled my order because I read some of the reviews after I'd clicked it. I thought it was a good idea. It hangs, like you say, from the little chains, has little hooks.
Yeah. It's a good idea if you have like like I don't know who is that there in the top middle. Who's that? I don't see a name. In between you and me, Brian.
Daniel.
Daniel. Yeah, if you're in like an area like that where it's semi clean and you want to keep it clean, they're pretty good.
Yeah.
But if you're using it in a wood shop or something like that, yeah, it's pointless. Because I mean, they clog so fast, it's not even funny.
I'm gonna stop this recording real quick.